Morning YouTube! The door waste seals on this car are door waste of time seals.
The rubber has gone hard and cracked as it's aged and is letting water down inside the door. They also look terrible.
So they're going to have to come off and be replaced. Now the bad news is that these seals are about £100 a pair. But the bad news is that you also have to completely dismantle the door to get them off. All the door glass has got to come out, so let's stop moaning and get on with replacing them. And the bad news just keeps on coming, folks, because the first job we've got to do is remove this speaker, so we're not going to be able to do this job with musical accompaniment from Little Mix. To remove the speaker, just undo all these Phillips head self-tapping screws and then disconnect the wiring from the back. When you've got that off, the next thing we need to do is remove this rearmost grommet. Come out! There you go. And then we need to get these two black access panels off. Now they're held in with push-fit plastic rivets. There's 4 in this door and 7 in this door. Now, before you attack these and drill them out, bear in mind they are quite an unusual size. They're 4mm rivets, which is a little bit difficult to get hold of. You can of course just drill the holes out a little bit and use 5.5mm rivets, which are readily available. If you're having trouble finding those, there's a company called vehicleclips.co.uk if you're in the UK, who will transform your life for finding plastic fittings like this. They've got literally hundreds of different ones, but the smallest they've got is 5.5mm. So you can just drill them out and replace them with an alternative. If you're desperate to reuse these ones though, then it is possible to get these out without destroying them. Get something with a really small diameter, that's a 1.5mm Allen key, and then just push the rivet itself through the housing so it drops down inside the door. Yeah. And then once you've done that, then you can remove the housing. And then after we've removed this panel, you're then going to have to fish the rivet itself right from the bottom of the door skin there, okay? Once you've pushed all these out, then you just need to get the plastic cover off the door. It's stuck in with sealant, so you're just going to have to go in with a screwdriver and pry it, but eventually that will come off.
Health and safety warning! Right, to get this door glass out, we're going to have to raise and lower the glass a couple of times to get at various bits which are either connected to the glass or hold the glass onto the car. Now, this is a metal reinforcing bar in the door, and if you lower the glass onto your fingers, it is quite possible to break or even sever one of your fingers there. So when you're raising and lowering the glass, keep your hands out of the door. Now, to get the sliders on the door glass to clear the inner seal here, at the very least you have to loosen the back edge of this inner door seal in order to get yourself enough clearance to get the glass out, which means taking that self-tapping screw out there and then also drilling the rivet out at the back of the seal here. Then there's some self-tapping screws in the top you need to take out, and then you take these two pieces out, and underneath there are some 1/8 inch rivets which you need to drill out. Then you probably have to drill out the back couple there, and then that should allow you to bend it around enough that you can get the door glass out if you don't want to take this off completely. However, I would recommend that you do take this off completely. It's really little more work to take it all off, and the advantage of doing that is that often the brush seal on the inside there is beginning to come away from the seal carrier, so that gives you a chance to glue that back on when you take it off. Also, if you try and do it with this on the car and just flapping it out, you're just really likely to bend it. You'll see when we come to get the glass out, it's a hard enough job as it is without this in your way, so I would recommend you take this inner seal off completely. Right, so we've drilled the rivet out that secures the back edge of the seal carrier to the door, removed the self-tapping screw that secures the top of the door seal to the door there, and then taken out the 8 self-tapping screws that screw this steel bar to the door seal. So take that out, and then underneath here, gently pry the door seal up. And so underneath the seal there are 5 1/8 inch aluminium rivets here, 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 and the 5th one is right at the front just there. And when you've found them all, just take a drill and drill them out.
And when you've done that, then the metal seal carrier that they're riveting to the car, you can lift that off with the rest of the inner seal as well. Let go of my glove. And when you drill those rivets out, the seal carrier is then secured to the top of the door with its bedded in sealant. So just get a sharp knife and run that along to cut away the sealant between the seal carrier and the fiberglass of the door itself. And once you've done that, yeah, the seal will come out. And you remember I was saying that this brush seal tends to come away from the seal carrier, which is why it's worth removing this. So you can see, look, it's just stuck on with a sort of double-sided sticky tape, and after 25 years that's beginning to come away now. So bond that back on. Epoxy glue works very well for that, so just glue that and clamp it while the glue sets. Right, to remove the glass, the first thing we have to take off is the upstop bobbins, which are screwed to the lower edge of the door glass. There's one at the front here, and there's one at the back which you access through that hole that we took the grommet out of right at the start. And the way you remove these is you undo that Phillips screw, which is often a little bit harder than you might think. The bobbin engages in a catch at the top of the door, and that's what determines the park position of the glass in the up position. Now, that screws to the inner edge of the door glass. It screws into this thing, which is pushed through a hole on the outside edge of the glass. Now, the problem is that this is supposed to be bonded to the glass with sealant, but usually that sealant comes off, so this just spins around. So usually you'll find when you try and undo that Phillips screw, it'll just turn and turn and turn. So it's hard to show you on the car because I just can't get the camera in and my hands and see anything, but the way to do it is to just get a pair of pinch nose pliers and then reach up from behind the glass and just try and catch hold of that with the pinch nose pliers while you undo the screw. And once you remove your upstop bobbins, have a look through the central access panel, and the glass is held on by this thing which is called the butterfly clip. Right, now the way the butterfly clip works is that a stud goes through the back of the butterfly clip through a hole in the glass, and then this end clips onto that stud to sort of sandwich the glass in place. So the way to remove this is you need to get hold of this plastic tag and pull it downwards to disengage that clip. Now when you do that, it will probably break because they're quite brittle, these now being 25 years old. If it does, go to the video on 3D printing these and get a new one made, because at the moment that's the only way to replace these, is getting one 3D printed. So we've raised the glass up so that the butterfly clip is above that door reinforcing bar, so we can get at it, and we'll see if we can get this off without breaking it. Now, sorry if my hands are in the way. And there's the answer to that. A resounding no. Fortunately, in best Blue Peter style, here's one that we made earlier. And the last thing before we go to remove the glass is quite an important one. Loosen, but don't remove, all of the nuts that hold the window channels in place. So they are one at the top, get a 10mm spanner or a 10mm socket. There's one at the top there, two at the bottom, which hold the bottom edge of the rear channel, two on the underside of the door, which hold the bottom of the centre channel, one at the top in the centre there, which holds the top of the centre channel. One at the front, just underneath the mirror there, top of the front channel, and one at the bottom at the front of the door for the bottom of the front channel. And loosening those off, that'll give you just enough wriggle room that you'll be able to get the slider blocks to clear the top of the door edge here. And now the slightly nerve-wracking bit, we've got to push the glass off that stud. You remember when we talked about the butterfly clip? We've got to push the glass outwards and slide it off that stud that's going through the butterfly clip. Now, if you can't get the glass to come away, you won't be able to see much of my hands in the way, but if the glass won't come away, then loosen those bolts at the bottom edge of the channel a little bit more to give you a bit more play.
but it will come off eventually.
And this is a job which is definitely easy with one person helping you and nobody filming you, but that's not what we've got. So, slide the glass out. Now, there is a slider block here which you need to get to clear the back edge of the door. There's a slider block at the front which you need to get to clear the inner trim piece for the mirror here. And slidey. Don't drop your glass, especially not in front of a billion YouTube viewers. You have to come round in the way of the camera, I'm afraid. Okay. Victory is mine. You need to clean your windows a bit more often, and I can see straight away why this glass was so wobbly. The slider block's gone at the front there, so you should have two sliders at the front and two sliders at the back. Clean the glass and bond the nut for the upstop bobbin onto the outside of the glass, using either windscreen sealant or body sealant, and leave that to set. And if your door glass is rattling, this is the probable reason that the slider blocks just tend to come loose with age. First thing to be aware of, the front upper slider boss here is a shorter shank than the lower one. The lower one uses a 12mm long shank, the upper one is the 8mm one, so don't get those two mixed up. So the correct way to fit these is from the outside of the glass we're going to insert a 4mm countersunk screw through the plastic bush. Apply a drop of Loctite thread locker to the threads of the screw. And then put that through the glass. And then on the inside goes a rubber washer. And then the slider boss itself goes on last. And then just do that up with a Phillips screwdriver. And this bit you can do up nice and tight. Then on the inside, slide the slider block over the slider boss. And then there's this very short 4mm Phillips head screw which goes through a plain washer. And we're going to thread lock the threads of that as well. And it's very important to thread lock this before we fit it. Put them in there. And the reason for that is that although you need this tight, that slider block's got to be able to turn as the window goes up and down. So if you don't thread lock that, then it will unscrew itself as it turns backwards and forwards every time you open and close the windows. And although the workshop manual calls these things rollers, they are in fact sliders, so it doesn't matter if they've become a little bit flattened with age. It also doesn't particularly matter whether you mount them horizontally or vertically in the slider block. Early cars used 5 of these. They had 2 in the front lower slider block and then 1 in each of the others, and I believe they were mounted horizontally on early cars. Later cars like this one used 4, 1 in each of the slider blocks, and they were mounted vertically. So they just sit in there like that. The important thing is that they face one another, that they're on the insides of the slider blocks. And then the only thing that they're lubricated with is just a very generous gob of petroleum jelly, Vaseline. Stick the sliders in with a good gob of Vaseline as well, because you don't want them to fall out when you're fitting the glass back onto the car. And the final thing is, if you need to replace your old butterfly clip, just lower the window to the lowest position and then lever the old one off with a screwdriver. Like that, and slide a new one onto the studs. Other than that, putting the glass back in is pretty much just the opposite of taking it out. And to remove that outer door seal, we need to undo these probably very rusty looking
self-tapping screws, and you get at the heads of those through these holes in the inner door skin. You are going to have to remove a couple of other pieces as well to get at them. These inner door support pads need to come out by undoing the Phillips screw on the underside here. It's also worth removing the outer ones as well though, although you don't need to get the seal out. The reason for that is then you can stick the fur seal back on the same way that we did with the inner door seal. And you also need to get the top of the window regulator out of the way by undoing and removing this nut on the inside of the door skin here, and that allows you to get at the head of the screw that is just behind it. Even when you've got at them all though, it's likely that some of them are going to be so rusty that you can't unscrew them, which gives you no alternative but to drill them out. Now, it's not particularly easy to do because you need a particularly long drill bit to reach them through the indoor skin there. Be very careful when you're drilling them out though that you don't then drill all the way through the outer door skin. Similarly, when you go to put them back on, use stainless steel self-tapping screws. These are a 1/2 inch 8 gauge self-tapping screw, and don't use anything longer than 1/2 inch because again, if you do, you're in danger of screwing them through the outer door skin. Well, that's a bit of a result. I did manage to get all but one of them out, so we've just got to drill this last one and then we can take the seal off. Now, the first time I went to replace one of these seals, I was discussing the job with my wife, and I was moaning about the cost of the new seals and thinking, oh, I'm going to try and repair it. And she said, no, just buy a new one and replace it. It's in a really obvious place on the car. If it doesn't look right, it'll really show. And the time it takes you, it'll be worth more than 50 quid to you anyway. And I agreed with her because, obviously, as with most things, she was completely right. But then as soon as I got the seal off the car, I was looking at it and I was thinking, oh, you know what? 50 quid's a lot of money to spend for 7 quid's worth of door seal bonded to a bit of steel. So if you want to ignore my wife's good advice as well and try and repair this is what we're going to do. You need the metal seal carrier to be in decent condition, or at least to be repairable. But assuming it is, then get a sharp knife and cut away most of the old PVC seal, the perished seal. And as soon as you've removed as much of the old seal as you can with a sharp knife, then we're just going to burn the rest off. Now, my wife is pretty understanding with all this stuff, but even I'm not going to try and do this over the kitchen cooker again. So this time we're going to use a gasket scraper and a blowtorch. Get yourself in a well-ventilated space, the smoke is acrid, and then just heat it up with the blowtorch until it catches light and softens. And then scrape it off with the gasket scraper. And when you've got all the old rubber burnt off, then clean this up, treat the rust and paint it. In the next video we're going to be looking at how to get rusty old scrap like this looking as good as new. Right, and when you've got your seal carrier all painted and de-rusted, then the next thing you need to do is get yourself a 1 metre length of this for each door. Now this is door seal. This came from Woodies Trim in Peterborough, and it is their door seal profile 255. It's a pretty standard profile for door seal. You should be able to get it from pretty much any decent trim supplier. And then we're just going to bond that to the carrier. So this is U-Pol Tiger Seal. You could use Sikaflex, any sort of body sealant will do. And we're just going to lay a bed of that along the seal carrier. And then we'll bond the seal to the seal carrier and then just clamp those together while it sets. So that is our as good as new repaired door seal. I had to weld a new section into the back where it had gone rusty, so you're probably looking at in total about 3.5 hours work to get to that stage. So that's saved us maybe £40. So if 3.5 hours of your time is worth 40 quid, then you need to get yourself a better job. Let's get it back on the car. And that's alright, a door seal back on. Don't forget to put the outer door glass support pads back in, and we've also loosely fitted the inner glass support pads. But other than that, putting the glass back in is just the opposite of taking it out. The only other thing is when you go to put the glass back in, you could do with an assistant really, because the lip of the seal is going to tend to get tucked underneath the glass. If you can get someone with a screwdriver to just gently hold that out the way as you put the glass past it, that'll make life a lot easier for you. But other than that, get the door glass back in. So we're ready to put the door glass back in. Now, if you're replacing glass breakage, one last thing is get all the old broken shards of glass out of that channel there that gets stuck between this metal support bar and the outer door skin. So I think if you leave the glass shards in there, they're just going to eat their way through the fiberglass and out through the outside of your door. So clean all that out. So once you've rested the glass back in and reattach the butterfly clip and reattach the upstop bobbins, then tighten up the nuts and bolts that secure the window channels, and you might need to adjust those a little bit to get the glass going up and down smoothly. I found it best if you tighten the lower ones when the glass is in the down position, then raise the glass up and then tighten the upper one. Seems to work quite well, but just experiment with that until the glass is sliding smoothly again. And then the final thing is just to adjust the glass. Vertically, the glass wants to be a snug fit in the roof weather seals, and you achieve that by adjusting the height of that bracket there, which is what those upstop bobbins fit into when the glass is raised. The inner door support pad, this furry thing here, that wants to be adjusted so it's in a light contact with the glass when the glass is down. And then the inward tilt of the glass wants to be adjusted so that the glass is in light contact with the weather seals all around the screen pillar, the roof and the B-posts, and that inward tilt is achieved by, or is adjusted by, loosening the bolts at the bottom of the channels there and then just sliding the channel in and out. So there you go, we've got an absolutely mint looking new door seal and a really solid, satisfying door shut. So all that remains is to put that inner seal back on and the job's finished. Right, even I'm getting bored of this video now and I haven't had to watch it. So let's get this inner door seal back on and get out of Dodge. So lay a thin bead of sealant along the top edge of the door and bed the inner door seal down into it. Secure the seal carrier using 5 rivets in the top edge of the door. Plus 1 screw or rivet in the rear edge of the door, on the rear edge of the seal. And then stick the seal down to the seal carrier using contact adhesive. So just spread that onto both surfaces, leave it for 10 minutes to dry and then press them together. And then reattach this clamping plate using 8 1/2" 8-gauge stainless steel self-tapping screws. And when you've done that, bed of sealant round the access panel hatches and then refit those black access panels with the black push fit rivets. Reattach the speaker, reattach that grommet that you get the upstop bobbin with. Door cards back on the same way we took all those off. Then get a cup of tea, get some Little Mix on the car stereo and stand back and admire a good job well done.